Starting out, I should just say congratulations on The Last of Us.
Oh, that game. Remember that game?
What game is that?
Are you guys glad you don't have to talk about that for a while, or does it feel like your baby and you're always eager to talk about it, or what state are you guys in?
I don't know, I guess working on the film, still thinking about it, but pretty focused on Uncharted 4 right now.
It's hard to go back to, mentally, to talk about those moments in that world and all that stuff. I can talk about sort of on the macro level of like the things we've learned and the lessons and how we're applying that now, because that's kind of in my genes, in my bones, in my blood at this point. But like Last of Us was a trial by fire, right? As every game is, so it's near and dear and like my heart, you know, right there. It's all right there.
Like when did it come out? Like a year and a half ago it came out. That's like
it's infinity.
10 years
That's
in
infinity
video
for games in
video
life.
game time.
Totally. So yeah, like talking about moments in the game, I've actually kind of forgotten certain moments and stuff. I really have to go back and go like, oh right, you play Ellie, right? Yeah, that's cool. Spoiler alert.
10 years from now, you can go back and play that game and be wild and be like, oh, this is a hell of a thing I made.
I can't wait.
It might be possible then to play that game.
I still haven't played the game.
You guys have risen through the ranks and you have led development on probably a couple of the greatest games of all time at this point, but specifically with The Last of Us. At what moment did that really sink in for you guys? Just the amount of acclaim that it got when it was released?
For me, it's hard to still comprehend it on that level or think about it on that level. It's interesting to look at and hear the accolade when you see like I don't know how many Game of the Year awards now, but it was over 220 last time I saw, which is insanity. It's just something that we, and I know I could probably speak for Neil and some of the team as well, where it's like you still see the flaws, you still see the things that you wish you had more time to improve on, you still wish you could have done something a little differently, and I'm super proud of what we've done here in the team and everything that we've accomplished. And I'm super happy it's resonated with people, but at the same time, there's another aspect which is like, I don't know, it's like it's not done or something. Like I don't know. So accolades are cool. I'm glad people respond, but I guess I don't think about it on that level.
What was the most satisfying moment after its release, I guess?
It's probably like doing a signing. We did some signings at Comic-Con and meeting people that have played the game and seeing how much they've connected with the story, the game, the experience. And I've had people say like, it's changed the way they think about life and they want to have kids now and that they didn't before. Ashley told me a story that after a girl played Left Behind, like that helped her come out to her parents. And to me that's just unreal, right? Because that was never our intention, was to create something like that. It was just, you know, to entertain and say something artistically, but I never imagined it would affect people on that level.
It didn't register on the level that you're asking. It registered for me as a player going through Billstown, and one of those beautiful sequences that you know, in development we're hoping is going to all come together, like the reasons why we have all these systems. We've spent so much time working on the systems and the interlace, you know, behavior of these systems. Like I think I was trapped and Ellie throws a brick at one clicker that's like a foot away from attacking me as Bill shotguns another one in the face and protects me. And then I had that little moment where it's just like everything came together in one little like event. I was just like, you'll never see that again. That happened dynamically and I felt amazing. And so I get where other people, I get that can happen. That's what we were going for the moment to moment, the gameplay. Let's not even touch on story. I guess on that level I understand it.
And do you feel like a proud father at that moment? Like, good job, Code?
Yeah, I guess on some level I was proud of what we were able to accomplish here, for sure. You hope that those moments happen, but you rarely get to experience them as a developer because you're so close to it.
When I was here for the cover story trip on Last of Us, it seemed like you guys were still in the phase of, we want to make No Country for Old Men. We want to make that level of tension. We don't know if it's going to work. We made this vertical slice, but we're still figuring out how to make that into an overall game. And so I'm wondering if you guys can just compare the state you were in during our last visit and that open water that you're trying to navigate through versus creating an Uncharted. Do you feel like you understand how to make an Uncharted game at this point? Not
this Uncharted. This Uncharted still feels like, you know, we have our vertical slice. We found our flow and the voice of this game, if you will. And now it's like, okay, well, how do you expand it? How do you flesh that out for the entire experience and making sure it's got its proper pacing, it's got its ups and downs. Yeah, it seems like an eternity from now to when we'll be like finished with it, but it's a year.
Yeah, I mean, deadlines like these milestones that we hit, that, like Neil said, this is a vertical slice for us. This is, a playable section. And it's like you're escaping a burning building, and it's like, what do I take with me? Well, you just have to get out. Like, do I need albums? You don't need albums, just run. And that's like getting this done, and this just little milestone is like, we made it out of the building, and now you're like, well, what do I have with me? And that's really, because before you've built this structure, this huge thing, and you have all these ideas and theories and what we call theory craft. It's like, what if we could do this? And those are the things where it becomes unwieldy. And we have to pare it down and pare it down and pare it down and like find out what works. And that's where you've made it out of the burning building, and you can look and go like, okay, this is what I have. These are the good essential elements that I can survive on, and now how do we build and play with these elements? And that's the end of my burning building analogy.
Yeah, this was the first time we've had gameplay and music and polished mechanics, and the voice acting and cinematics going into gameplay. It's the first time all those elements have come together and showed us, okay, this is what this game is really like.
So what have you guys learned from that vertical slice then?
Oh.
Making Uncharted 4 is hard.
It's really hard.
Making every game is really hard. It's never easy. Where's the blueprint? Who's got the fucking blueprint to make these things,
Every time you forget, it's like, 4 weeks ago, the demo was kind of a mess. There were all these other mechanics that we end up cutting or changing. It's like, this was a moment to make choices. And we've made now certain choices, and it's got this feel, and now it's like, okay, well, we commit to that and we go forward.
You say, where's the blueprint? Isn't the blueprint to some extent Uncharted 2? I mean, you guys know that game backwards and forwards.
No, because we're constantly questioning like how to do this better. We're driven by, we want to create an experience that resonates with the player. And what we're trying to do is create amazingly rich characters, an adventure that these characters can go on, pressure applied to the characters, and all these things have to make sense. They have to click together with the controller in your hand. And I want to feel engaged. I don't want to just play the same games I've always played before. I played that other game, and I wish that it had X, Y, and Z to it. So it's okay, well, maybe we can get X and Y, but Z doesn't quite fit, but we're going to evolve it. And then we did The Last of Us, and that gave us new concepts of like how to evolve things. And each time, it's not like as developers, we're like, well, I'm bored. It's like we as players, we want to play a game that is the ultimate Uncharted that we think that this thing could be. It has such great potential.
Yeah, that would have been the blueprint for Uncharted 2.
Right.
If we were to make Uncharted 2 now, it'd be a different game, because we've changed, we've learned so much, we've evolved as developers, that now this is the Uncharted we feel like we want to make, and the culmination of everything we've learned on Uncharted and The Last of Us.
That's a really good point, because when we were making Uncharted 2, it was like, that was the end-all be-all. Like when we heard ideas, like when the programmers said, we were talking about this crazy idea that you can actually make a train travel through an environment. It's not like other games where you have a background element and other background elements and everything's just moving and we're faking that we're on a train. No, the train's gonna actually undulate and go up and down, and you're gonna have like all this momentum. It's like when a programmer at Naughty Dog said like, I think we can do that. I think we can do that. And I heard our programmers, like I have faith in these guys. They're magicians. They have sorcerer hats and everything. It's amazing. And you go like, oh my God, they said they could do it. And my little gamer heart swelled up and goes like, I want to play that game. And at that time, that was like that was the pinnacle. That was like, I've never played anything like that. And that's all we try to do when we're talking about these ideas initially, is get that feeling in our little gamer heart and have it go like, I want to play that game. And if I can get that, then it's like just hang on to that and just try to reach that. So Uncharted 4 has a whole different idea of like, that's gonna be awesome. And you kind of saw it in the demo that we showed. It's like the types of environments, that kind of art, all the layering of the mechanics from the new rope, the new piton, and how you're gonna problem solve in a space, how you're gonna lay that into combat. It's just like, that's just a meat and potato. That's not even touching on the epic and the other places that we're gonna go. It's just like, I wanna play that game.
But that's that wider, more sandbox feel that now we're drawn to after having worked on something like The Last of Us, and then thinking, okay, with the verticality of Nathan Drake, with adding set pieces that weren't necessarily in this demo, how do you get a bigger flow, something that's maybe deeper, more on an emotional level? How do all those elements come together to make the Uncharted that we wanna play now?
When you look at the gameplay on this thing, the things that I wanted to do with Nathan Drake as a player, I want to climb and I want to drop down. I want to have enemies around and I want to use that environment in a way that I say like I'm in charge. And I want the enemies to be smart enough to like flank and use the environment and traverse and move around. And I want them to say, you go left, I go right, and put the pressure on me. And I want to be smart enough to, I see a rope grapple, how do I use that? I want to do all the traversal stuff that we did in Uncharted 2 where we layered combat in with traversal, but now I want to do it with ropes. Now I drop back into stealth, re-engage back into combat. I want to really toy and play with Nathan Drake inside of that environment. That was the first thing. It was just like, this is going to be so cool.
To us, like Uncharted combat works really well is when it has a flow to it, where you're not just behind cover, shooting over it, ducking back down. Is like when your cover is getting flanked and you have to jump and move and drop down to another level.
Yeah.
And here we're like, okay, well, let's create these slide areas where you can jump down. Now you're sliding in mud and you have to leap off at the end. You can land on someone, or you're swinging a rope and you're swinging back down and
go,
like
man,
land on the guy,
go.
grab the gun, and then like chain that into like spinning to another dude and then shoot him.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I want to play that game. So much of what we're trying to do with all of our games is as just designers, and this no matter what game we would be trying to make, is I want to make it accessible. Mm-hmm. We as a studio are trying to make it accessible, and accessible doesn't mean like dumbed down and like you press one button and a whole sequence plays out. Mm-hmm. We just want to make it so that you understand, you have a relationship with the mechanics, that you chunk them easily and you can engage with them. And now you want to exploit them, and it's up to you to have that choice. And Uncharted 2, it was like, well, action stealth was as far as we got stealth. So now, how do we still make it accessible and fast-paced and all this, but still give you that ability to drop into stealth and to play with the AI? And how can I use the traversal mechanics within stealth? Like just stealth in and of itself is expanded as far as like from Uncharted 2 through 3 and The Last of Us to now, it's just like, okay, Nathan Drake climbing with these guys in stealth. It's like, just imagine the possibilities.
Does it feel a little bit like a homecoming because you guys spent so much time with the Uncharted series? Is it nice to get back? Does it feel kind of like your roots?
Yeah, I mean it's a different kind of mindset, and actually we've been talking about it. Like when we first got on The Last of Us, and Last of Us is kind of very intimate and small, and set pieces are like just bringing the camera in and having Joel be injured. That took a lot of like for us getting used to that mindset coming from Uncharted, and then getting the team to be comfortable just thinking on that level. And now we're finding we have to do the opposite. Is like it's okay, like just let's think big. Like what can we collapse? What can we blow up? What can like just be and it's just thinking more of like, I don't know if a little kid is the right word for it, but it's much more of a pulpy spectacle, and that's okay. That's part of this world.
It is kind of funny to see the evolution of our relationship with the team also, because The Last of Us was, nobody knew what we were talking about by intimate and grounded and all these kinds of things, and because we're not making niche either. We're not making hardcore survival horror, so we're still making a Naughty Dog game. And then everybody's come around to this, like what it means to be more impactful and grounded and close.
And character driven.
And now we want to go like, let's blow some shit up. And the team's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like just that rock, a rock that moves, and like some people are like, I don't believe that rock would actually
why would that rock move that way?
Just like
how much does Drake weigh that he would actually move that rock?
What game are you playing? We're not making The Last of Us here. We're making Uncharted, man. Let's crank this thing. We had to notch in 11 again. Like we rubbed it out with with The Last of Us, and we're like, fucking get that thing back in there. Now, granted, we're evolving it, and it's good because we're taking what we've understood about The Last of Us and what works. We've added way more weight to the animations. Everything has more impact, the melee moves, etc. There's a lot more of a sense of humanity in the world as well with the AI, what we've learned again about The Last of Us, without making it so that you have so much guilt, inside of the environment, or a sense of weight to every action. It's still fun and pulpy. But we want to make sure that it feels like this is a human being inside of this world, and the plants are interacting. And when he drops down, you see we have physics on all of his motion, so there's all this extra weight to him in his secondary motion. It feels like this guy is inside of that environment. He's there, I'm there, we're there.
So is the difference coming from Last of Us, where the reality is basically our reality, and in Uncharted, do you see the reality as basically an adventure movie?
We say it's a stylized reality, that death doesn't carry the same weight as it would in something like The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. You are a good guy, you're fighting very bad guys. And again, I hate because it's turned pejorative recently, but it's in a comic book way, and that there's very kind of clear moral ground that you're exploring, while at the same time trying to find the humanity within the characters that exist in this world, finding who Nathan Drake really is, what is the effect of him going on these adventures that would have on his partner and his friends, and yeah.
Do you find it difficult to find an emotional connection with characters? I mean, the common thing that everybody always brings up is like, oh, Nathan Drake is a killing machine. What is he going to care about? Do you find it more difficult in that kind of comic book style to find resonant emotions that actually connect with gamers then?
No, I don't think
all.
so. Just like, people can relate to Spider-Man and Peter Parker, even though he's clearly Peter Parker doesn't exist in our world. But if you find enough things that we relate to as developers and that feel honest to us, then we believe the players will find those aspects as well and be able to connect Nathan Drake. Everyone has loved someone else or is in a relationship and can understand making sacrifices for someone you love versus pursuing what you're passionate about. I mean, we make those sacrifices in our lives every day, making video games. So yeah, you just find what's real and what's honest.
I think from stuff that you've released so far, at least I had the impression that it was going to be a much older Nathan Drake, but it's only like 3 years or so. But do you want to talk about just the idea of the world maturing, him getting older? Is there kind of a Richard Linklater effect where you guys are pouring your own personal lives as you're getting older into the game?
Well, I mean, he's much older than he was in Uncharted 1, right? It's been, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years since since we made Uncharted 1. He's been aging just as we have. And between the events of Uncharted 3, he's now made certain choices to be able to settle down, to be with the person he loves, and he's given up adventuring. And for us, it's kind of interesting to explore that idea of what are the sacrifices you make for the people you love, and when is it okay to pursue something you're really passionate about, and is there ever a point where that goes too far? Those are kind of interesting themes for us to explore in this reality.
Do you find a parallel with your own life and your passion for making video games?
Absolutely. Definitely when I'm writing certain scenes, I know my wife would hate me for mentioning this, but sometimes I'm here really late at night. I've got kids at home, and it's trying to find that balance. It's just I love making games so much. I have in the past maybe sacrificed too much, and I don't know, now I'm talking about myself. So let me say something.
And Bruce is your Sam.
Bruce is my Sam.
I'm not. I am not. I have the most balanced life. Our Uncharted to me is, I want to go back to the homecoming question just for a second and just think about it's been an interesting process coming around to what Uncharted is and how to evolve from The Last of Us. But there's definitely something freeing coming from The Last of Us. I never got affected by the bleak concept. People outside think that somehow you're living in this dark world and you're taking on all this burden.
No one's talking to each other, everyone's just furrowed all day.
I'm shipping people as I go to the kitchen. It's not like that at all when you're in development. You're focusing on the next thing the next decision that has to get made, and you're trying to make the best decision. And then with Uncharted though, with design, there's so much that we've freed up, that Uncharted allows us to free up. As far as the types of layouts and the spaces and even the shapes, right? The fact that we can go to this island somewhere off the coast of Madagascar that has these wild shapes, these shards of rock that accentuate also what's happening and paralleling within the player arc at that point. But we get to make that decision based on we just want to make it awesome. And The Last of Us, you had a little bit more of well, where are we actually? Well, we're in Pittsburgh. Well, what does that mean exactly? How much overgrowth can we put in there? How would a hotel flood? We're really getting into that level of detail. And
the direction on The Last of Us very often was it doesn't need as much. Let's make it small, make it simpler. This wall, just make it look like a wall. Don't worry, don't go complex. What we're finding now, it's kind of the opposite. The final shot in the demo where you're seeing those buildings in the distance. The first pass, there were almost no buildings.
Yeah, you can.
And they're little tiny buildings. Let's go more. And then okay, the buildings got a little bit bigger. It's more, and it's okay, now we got these big, tall, almost skyscrapers on this pirate colony, and it's okay, this feels right.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're there.
I mean, I'm trying to think. This is the fourth entry in a Naughty Dog series ever, right? I mean,
Jack X Combat Racing.
Well, I mean,
hello.
Not to dismiss the racers. Do you feel a pressure to be bold with the design of this, just to keep things fresh, because it is the fourth entry?
I don't know if it's called pressure. I want to call it pressure. Again, it's driven as a player more than anything. What do we want to play? It's it's trying to have that same experience that I just described in Bill's. As a player, I want to play that. You know, I want to play Nathan Drake climbing on things, and I want to use a rope in an interesting way. I want to try to figure out something while I'm traversing, and I want to be engaged on that moment-to-moment level within traversal. So those are all the things that, you know, just seem like a natural evolution. So the question and the difficulty in trying to find that blueprint that we talk about is like, how do you pace that out? How do you lay that out? What metric units does the rope actually traverse? How far can I jump? Like, what does that mean for streaming and load? Like, there's so much crud that you have to like deal with in building a game, but you have to deal with that, and then we have to process all that so we can get to a layout that gives us that experience. I don't know what I'm rambling about.
Yeah, so the pressure is internal. It comes from us.
Right, pressure.
We've played the previous 3 Uncharted games, and like if we wanted to play those, we would go back to those. But now we're like, we have a hunger, a thirst for something else. The pressure is trying to find that and trying to make sure all those new systems work. Again, because we want to make a game that we'll be proud of playing ourselves.
Yeah, I think that you hit on exactly where my head was at. Was like, I think the pressure is strictly, we want to be proud and we want the team to be proud of something that we can say like, this is Uncharted 4. You know, it's a fight making these games, you know, and we're wrestling with this thing and trying to find the fun and trying to make it in schedule and, you know, and frame rate and all these things. So it's like, we want to be proud at the end of the day that all that fight was worth it. So that's what it comes
there's
down
kind
to.
of like, sometimes we'll have a brainstorm meeting and we're like looking at a different mechanic or a different something we want from rendering, and people say, oh, that's really hard. And then someone in the room will eventually say, we're Naughty Dog. And like that statement has so much weight, and the pressure is to make sure that statement always has weight going forward. It's like, we're Naughty Dog. We're going to try to make one of the best games out there.
With Last of Us, I mean, it was also one of the most bold games ever made, and it stood out to so many people, maybe even people that weren't Uncharted fans, but it's like, what is this? This stands out in the industry so much, I need to play it. So how much do you think you can push the Uncharted framework? How bold can you be within that framework of what the Uncharted series is?
I guess I don't think on that level, as far as like, oh, making sure we make an impression as far as someone sees us as being bold. But again, it's more of like, what is the game we want to play? Like, we're going to evolve the story in certain directions. We're going to evolve the gameplay in certain directions. And then, you know, hopefully people connect to that in the way that we are connecting to it. But as far as how much that is or what kind of impact, that's beyond us.
Sure. Yeah, it's back to that when we're in the pie in the sky brainstorming phase, when you have that feeling inside that makes you feel like, I want to play that. That's it. That's as simple as it gets. Like, just try to hang on to that. What was it that resonated with you? And then have faith that there's other gamers out there that are going to want to do the same thing. You know, and most likely sometimes that feeling is driven by the fact that you haven't played it in another game. It's not like I'm trying to say what isn't in other games that we can put in or create that's, you know, different. It's as simple as like, oh, that sounds cool. I've never done that before. That sounds neat. Like, that was the train in Uncharted 2, and there's definitely elements here that were just like, that's cool. I've never played that. I can't wait.
So in the development of Uncharted 4, do you want to talk about the biggest kind of underappreciated hurdle that you guys have had to go through in this game's development?
For me, on the larger game scale, macro side of things, it's like going from what could be Uncharted, like the pie in the sky, the theory craft of like all the possibilities, because there's a ton of possibilities, and reining that all back into something that is reduced down to its essence, so that every mechanic is simplified down, but they layer well on top of each other, and this creates the complexity. Core mechanics are difficult.
Looking at the previous 3 games and really trying to understand and distill what Uncharted is about and finding its tone and spirit, honoring that and still trying to evolve it, still try to take it somewhere else, that's a big challenge. That's a big responsibility in a way, is making sure those characters are true to who they were and, you know, continue their arc, not doing something that completely would contradict something that has happened before.
Does it feel kind of like your work with the Jak and Daxter reboot? Is it kind of mirroring some of those feelings?
No, because I started Naughty Dog when at the end of Jak 3. So those world was already so defined, and I didn't have much part in defining who Jak and Daxter were. I became a designer and a writer on Uncharted 1. So I have a lot of attachment to these characters in this world, and I've been there for the first 2 games, co-writing them. And then, you know, just evolving those ideas and then trying to take everything Nathan Drake has done and who he is and all the facets you've seen of him and trying to find closure for that story. That's really challenging, and that comes with a lot of stress. But you just try to ignore it, and, you know, we make sure we're always on the same page, and when we're kind of constructing this thing, and then we kind of go off in different directions, me with story, Bruce with gameplay, and then making sure everything is working together to give a consistent experience.
Nathan Drake, though, is an interesting character in that he's got this facade that everybody believes as he's quippy and he's off the cuff. But over the course of each game, you've seen that he's actually driven by something way deeper than what's on the surface. Everything that Neil's saying about like 1, 2, and 3 have built up a lot of different, like it's all Nathan Drake. And each of the characters that we've introduced in his world and his universe are pulling different aspects of him out. But we've also left a few things, some loose ends here and there, and we still have a story to tell about something else inside of him. What's driving this guy? What makes him adventure? What makes him make these choices that he's driven to make? Who is Nathan Drake and what makes him tick? And that's really interesting to me. All the mechanics and all these things and all this layering and the pairing of all these things together, that's important for the moment to moment. But ultimately what we're trying to do is we're a character-driven game. Is like everything is about the characters. When I get done with this adventure, yeah, I've done all this cool stuff, but ultimately I want to know more as a human about this other human. That's storytelling. That's what we do, but we do it interactively.
Not to turn this into a therapy session, but do you think a lot of that kind of inner pain is stuff he saw in his childhood? Is that where a lot of it's coming from?
I think that's where a lot of people's inner pain comes from, right? With things that have happened early in your life, and whether those experiences are scarring or they were so great that they just kind of linger with you. And one of the themes that we're exploring with Uncharted 4 is the idea of obsession, and passion can become obsession, can become an addiction, and they're all kind of very similar ideas, but they have a cost. And this idea that every treasure that Drake pursues has a cost to it, an emotional cost, a relationship cost sometimes. And that's where, again, when you start talking about it, it sounds dark. But again, that to me is the humanity within who Nathan Drake is. There's two sides to everything that we do in life, and in this game we're going to try to explore those two aspects of it.
So Bruce, talking about how you're passionate about opening up the game, give players some options, do you think that's a passion just within you, or is that the industry overall you think is kind of getting away from less linear experiences?
Am I allowed to say I don't care about what the industry is doing?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I don't care what the industry is doing. I want to make a game that I want to play. That's ultimate. And that may sound selfish. I mean, I'm thinking about a team. I'm thinking about something. It's like. But ultimately, we're not comparing what we're doing here with what other people are doing. We're comparing what's the evolution of Uncharted. What can we do with this franchise? Who is Nathan Drake? What can he do as far as just the stick and the controller? Where can he move around? He's an adventurer, right? And when we're coming up with these story moments, we have these mechanics in mind, and we're saying well, in this area, he's lost. He needs to find his way. What does that mean for mechanics? What does that mean for layout? How much can you widen it to emphasize the sense of exploration? You're trying to find your way. Well, you as the player are lost as well. Yeah. How do I need to figure out how to get there. Mm-hmm. So trying to parallel those concepts together and exploit those mechanics appropriately. That's the game I want to play. I want to be as invested as Nathan Drake in that moment. I want to be in that situation. And I want to look at awesome Naughty Dog artwork and just go oh, this place is fucking amazing. I want to do that too.
To go back to trends, when we first came on the project, there were some areas that were so big and so large that you lost any sense of pacing and you weren't sure where you're going. And again, that's not something that we wanted to play, so there are some adjustments made. And likewise, we're not against linear storytelling or linear gameplay, and I'm sure there will be parts of the game that are going to be more linear than others. There's going to be parts that are going to open up much wider than what you've seen in this demo. And it's really, what is this moment about? How does it fit into the greater scheme of what we're trying to tell? And what's the best way to get the player to relate to that moment?
Well said.
Fuck yeah.
Do you guys feel like this project is your baby at this point? You feel a lot of ownership over it?
It has to be. I mean, it's like you're investing in something for several years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the whole team feels that way, though. I think everybody invests so much that everybody has to feel like that texture, I have to make that the most amazing texture. And everybody's putting that kind of heart and soul into this thing. So I'm with Neil. If you don't feel like I want to play this, you certainly don't want to make it. Mm-hmm. As simple as that.
What makes you two work so well together? Why are you guys a team that's formed up here?
Our beards intertangle.
Yeah. And you actually can't see, but there's certain hairs that are tied. We physically can't get away from each other.
We're both really dark. We like dark things. We're emo. We're both emo.
I guess we've worked together for so many years now. We just have such a shorthand of communicating, and some moments where we're completely in sync and everything's working well together, and there's moments where we disagree and we have to come together, and there's moments where we fight and argue, and we know it's not personal, and we've figured out how to make the best decisions for the project, and we try not to get offended when, you know, one critiques the other. And yeah, it's been a lot of relationship building throughout the years. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with that. And I'd say like it all starts with trust. When we first started working together, it was a struggle trying to trust. Like Neil was a lead designer in Uncharted 2, so when he became the creative director of The Last of Us, for me, we went through a struggle of just like, well, I don't know, like, because I trusted him in the lead designer role. And then he proved himself beyond, and you know, like now I trust him. Like I'd swear up and down the guy is one of the best guys, if not the best, you know, writer in the industry. So it's like for me, when he has an idea or he sees something, even though it might offend me personally, I have to listen to it, and I go like, okay. And I know likewise that I have that same relationship with him. That if something's bothering me, then I can express myself, and then he'll listen to it, and he'll say like, okay, well, you're wrong, Bruce. No, but it has to be that back and forth. It has to be that trust and that willingness to hear the other person out. And I think that's the relationship building that Neil is talking about, is we've worked out an ability to communicate the things that are important to us. That's how we work.
And that
out.
goes even beyond us. There's so many people in the team that we've built trust over the years that, I don't know, like there's like 50 to 70 people that have worked on Uncharted 1 that are now working on Uncharted 4 that know these characters, know the franchise, and we have a shorthand with them. Mm-hmm. Right? There's animators that we could just give some high-level note and we know they're going to handle it, and we don't have to micromanage them or anything like that. And it really is built by this entire amazing team.
Yeah, it is like the coolest thing. I don't, just to tangent for a second, is like, I love that. I love that about Naughty Dog. I love that about the team that we have here, is that you have so many people that are just like astounding at what they do, and their passion that they're putting in, and the trust that I have to give these people something. Like Neil was saying, like 2 weeks ago, this demo was broken in so many different ways. There were so many mechanics and things that weren't working, and animations that were glitching out, etc. And it's just like time and time again, this team proves like, we'll pull it off. We'll get there. We'll get there. We're so privileged and lucky to work with this team, to have people as passionate as they are. I mean, we trust them immensely. It's the cool thing about Naughty Dog. And they luckily trust us. I mean, we make decisions, and ultimately, like, they trust, like, okay, well, yeah, you're making a decision trying to make the game better, so I'll change that for you. Like, yeah. So, and you know, that's a lot of responsibility, you know, because you're kind of messing with somebody's life. Do they go home at 9 or midnight, you know?
So could you guys ever see a sequel to The Last of Us made without you guys? Or do you want to be there for that entire journey?
Well, one, that's assuming there ever will be a sequel for The Last of Us, so that's a big assumption. So let's just say, if there was one, would I be okay if someone else did it? I don't know. That's a weird question.
You would not. I'll answer not. For Neil. He would not be okay with that. But yeah, that's all a big if. We're 110% in Uncharted 4 territory now. Blinders on, make this awesome. So.
Do you understand the people who maybe say, even though they love Last of Us, like, I don't really want a sequel. I like it being a one-off.
Yeah,
sure.
We totally get it, because you know, we have those same feelings as well. And we've, I mean, I've said this before, so this is not news, but you know, we have brainstormed sequel ideas for The Last of Us, and we've brainstormed ideas for new games, but all that is put on ice right now while we work on Uncharted 4.
Just to close things out, do you guys have a message for the fans or any misconceptions you want to clear up about the project?
If somebody cares, I don't know really, but it's like we're not going to make it too dark. Everybody calm down. Just take a breath. We're retaining all the lightheartedness. It's Nathan Drake. It was said earlier today in another conversation that it's like any project with Nolan North on it, it's like it can't get too dark. That guy, he is a keeper of Nathan Drake as much as we are, and the studio is, and everybody wants Uncharted to be right, Uncharted. We want Nathan Drake back, and that's a big part of it. So that being said, we're also going to make sure that it has the humanity and it has depth and breadth, and it's hopefully it touches you, you know. And if it has to go deep, we're going deep, man.
Not dark, but deep.
That's a good way to put it. Not dark, but deep. Do you have any misconceptions?
No, I was just I agree with everything you said. I would just say we're making a Naughty Dog game. If you've enjoyed anything we've done in the past, we're going to try to up our game and make another great game.